Hey there, it's Movie LKN. Today, I'll dive into a horror comedy gem, Black Friday. Spoiler alert, proceed with caution. The movie kicks off in a bustling Walmart, where Black Friday prep is in full swing. Monty, an employee, climbs some stairs to hang a banner, but suddenly, a strange object crashes through the roof. Monty rushes to investigate and finds a revolting blob of flesh on the floor. As he gets closer, the blob splits open to reveal a bizarre parasite with a mouth-like opening. The parasite spits a toxic white liquid, and Monty's blood splatters the walls as he screams in horror. These capitalist aliens are really making a mess. Meanwhile, across town, toy store employee Ken Bates drops off his two daughters at his ex-wife's home before heading to his shift at We Love Toys. Ken's ex has remarried a decent guy, but the daughters find their new life boring and miss spending time with their dad. Unfortunately, Ken has to work even on Thanksgiving, as he didn't get custody. But, believe it or not, he's still paying for their house. With a heavy heart, he leaves them behind and heads to pick up his co-worker, Chris G. Chris, a timid guy who still lives with his parents, is often berated by his father. Despite this, Chris and Ken have forged a strong friendship, making their tough work life a bit more bearable. As they drive to work, they're bummed about having to work on Thanksgiving night. They notice that Walmart, a major retail store, is closed on such an important day, unaware that it's been affected by the parasitic larvae from earlier. Outside We Love Toys, a long line of anxious customers waits for the store to open. Among them, a husband and wife are hoping to buy toys for their children. The man isn't feeling well and complains of abdominal pain, but his wife insists they can't afford to lose their spot in line. Parasitic aliens certainly don't respect a line, though. Ken and Chris join their co-workers as they prepare to open for Black Friday. Ken shares some banter with Marn, a co-worker with whom he clearly shares a close bond. Meanwhile, another employee, Bircher, steps outside for a smoke and notices a jelly-like blob on a car. As he leans in for a closer look, he accidentally locks himself out. Desperately banging on the door, he's suddenly attacked from behind. Back inside, the employees are informed that they won't be getting paid breaks for the night. Already irritable about working on Thanksgiving, this news just adds fuel to the fire. Ken is shadowed by the new EMT employee throughout his shift. Once everything is ready, they finally open the doors, and a flood of customers charges into the store, frantically grabbing every toy in sight. The staff dives right into the chaos, and Chris quickly finds himself dealing with a disgruntled customer. While handling a box of toys, he notices a sticky substance, and across the store, Marn catches an unsettling glimpse of an elderly man staring vacantly at her. Unnerved, she chooses to ignore it and gets back to work. Amid the bustling store, a cranky old woman decides to rest in Santa's chair. The camera then shifts downstairs, revealing the parasite lurking beneath her seat. Meanwhile, Chris's day takes a turn for the worse when he's sent to clean what appears to be vomit. However, the substance turns out to be fluid from the parasite, which has already infected some customers, transforming them into monstrous figures. Just as Chris starts cleaning, the infected patrons attack him, but he fends them off, hurling toy boxes in self-defense. Soon after, another employee, Archie, emerges from the staff room, shocked by the aftermath of Chris's struggle. He reports the incident to the floor manager, who confines Chris to the storage room, dismissing his story about being attacked by customers. Outside, the EMT is also ambushed by a mutated woman who spews a strange white goo in an attempt to infect him. Ken intervenes just in time, saving him, and they rush back to alert the other employees. They try to call the police, only to discover that the lines are unexpectedly busy. Despite the pandemonium, the store manager insists on keeping the store open. Throughout the night, the manager assumes his employees are just slacking off, given the chaotic pace. Moments later, EMT suddenly has a seizure and begins mutating into a grotesque creature. Cashier Anita tries to help, but EMT violently attacks, killing her instantly as he fully transforms into a monster and lunges at others. Luckily, Archie strikes him with a nail gun and forces him outside. The team quickly calls the neighboring store for assistance, only to find out that their shoppers have also transformed into monsters. When they ask for advice, the woman on the line urgently tells them to separate the mutated shoppers from the healthy ones. The call ends abruptly, hinting that the other store has been overrun by mutants. In a desperate move, the employees decide to hide on the sales floor until things calm down. The manager, still worried about making sales, is silenced by the others. Just as Anita begins to transform, they dash to the sales floor, only to freeze in horror at the sight before them. Blood-soaked floors, and a woman dragging a half-eaten body toward the Santa World section. Archie, Brian, and Chris spot more customers entering, so they risk their lives to close the main doors, giving the others time to escape to the storage room. Meanwhile, Ken heads to the restroom to retrieve a bottle of whiskey he'd stashed away. The manager, who's also in there, notices Ken rummaging around and asks what he's doing. Suddenly, a mutated customer bursts out from a bathroom stall, attacking Ken. Despite their struggle, Ken and the manager manage to shove the mutant away and escape. Meanwhile, Marnie, monitoring the cameras, sees the mutant shoppers clustering around Santa World. Curious and concerned, she goes to investigate and is horrified to find the mutants merging into a massive, ever-growing parasite. Alarmed, she hurries back to warn Ken, the manager, and the rest of the employees, and they quickly lock all the doors to prevent anyone else from entering. Suddenly, they spot a police car approaching and breathe a sigh of relief, thinking help has finally arrived. But their hope is short-lived. The car crashes straight through the store entrance, opening a path for the mutants to swarm in. Sin. The employees scramble to escape, but Chris is attacked by a female mutant. Archie tries to intervene, but the mutant sprays him with a gooey substance, infecting him. Despite the infection, Archie urges Chris to run and fights until a brutal mutant tears him apart, leaving no chance of survival. The remaining employees dash to the back of the store with a mutated EMT in pursuit. Marn finds a steel wrench and manages to kill the creature, but by now, only the manager, Ken, Brian, Chris, and Marn are left. The power suddenly goes out, forcing them to use glowing toys to light up the room. They have no option but to hunker down until the chaos subsides. A few hours later, Marn pulls a turkey from the fridge, and they share a tense meal together, knowing it will make them drowsy. Their brief moment of peace is shattered when Chris mocks Ken for working in retail and dating Marn, who's much younger. Surprising everyone, Marn clarifies that she isn't dating him, leaving Ken hurt as he'd thought they had a connection. Frustrated, he decides to leave the store once and for all. The group heads to the electrical room, discussing their plan to escape through the loading dock and drive away in a truck. As they gather tools to unlock the dock, the EMT suddenly reanimates, stronger and more dangerous than before. He attacks the group, eventually getting into a brutal fight with Ken. After a fierce struggle, Ken manages to knock him out, but not without suffering a bite in the process. As Ken's co-workers attempt to help him, he tells them to stay back, fearing that his infection might spread. The group suggests he amputate his arm to stop the infection, but Ken refuses, quipping, "If I can't use both hands, life isn't worth it." Saddened, they leave him behind. The others finally manage to open the loading dock door and pile into a nearby truck. Left alone, Ken locks himself in the loading dock, awaiting his transformation. Strangely, he remains unaffected. While he contemplates his next move, a mutant woman breaks through the door, sending him into a panic. Thinking fast, he lights a stuffed toy to distract her and hides behind some shelves. Meanwhile, Chris, inside the truck, spots a swarm of mutants charging towards them. Panicked, he tries to start the truck but doesn't know how. He quickly warns the others and they race back into the store before the mutants can break in. They head up an emergency exit that leads to the roof, only to encounter another issue. The giant parasite inside the store starts pushing up through the rooftop vents. Frustrated, the manager gives a dramatic speech about his hatred for shoppers and sacrifices himself by jumping into the vent, forcing the parasite back into the store. Back inside, Ken uses roller skates to evade the mutant woman. He sets up traps and diversions but is eventually cornered. He realizes she's the same rude customer he served earlier. She drags him toward the parasite, which attempts to hook him, but Ken manages to break free, delivering a blow with his roller skates, the bravest thing anyone's done in skates. On the roof, Brian suddenly confesses that he's the one who bit Ken, not a mutant. He admits he's held a grudge against him and saw this as an opportunity to get revenge. Furious, Marn calls him out and they scuffle, tumbling off the roof but landing safely in a garbage bin below. Chris soon joins them, and they dash to the parking lot trying to find a car. Meanwhile, the parasite has consumed the entire store and erupts through the roof, now a massive creature composed of mutant shoppers. Brian claims he can calm it, thinking he can use his managerial skills. Despite the others' doubts, he strides toward the giant parasite, trying to reason with it, offering discounts on overpriced items. For a moment, it seems to listen, but just as the group thinks his plan is working, the parasite swats him aside, ending him instantly. Devastated, Chris and Marnie begin to lose hope. Just then, Ken appears, keys in hand, ready to escape. They race toward his SUV but are intercepted by the giant mutant. Realizing someone needs to divert it, Ken bravely volunteers. He distracts the creature while the others scramble to the SUV. Then Chris spots a forklift nearby and gets an idea. He maneuvers the forklift toward the mutant, who tries to attach itself to it. Timing it perfectly, Chris jumps clear as the forklift impales the monster, sending it toppling into a nearby fire. Ken, Nis, Chris, and Marn watch as the giant burns, finally destroyed. They drive away, but as they leave, they catch a glimpse of other massive creatures emerging from nearby stores, hinting that the nightmare is far from over.